everyone. This video is going to kind of be a little bit different today. It's not going to be one of my normal vlogs. I've been wanting to make this video for a while now, just kind of been debating on how I was going to go about it. It's going to be a more serious topic, so if you're not interested, go ahead and click away. But for those that are, I'm going to be talking about my mental illnesses, particularly my panic disorder and how I've been coping with that, and my experiences, my symptoms, stuff like that. So I guess how I wanted to start this, so I have this app, it's called Panic Shield. I'll link it down below in the description, but it has some pretty good information. Like, it has different articles, I don't know if you can see, about like what's anxiety, what's panic disorder, stuff like that. So I'm gonna read like what it is, just to explain, to people that have never experienced it or new to it, what it is, what causes it, and stuff like that. But basically about 2 months ago I was diagnosed with this, and I'll go into more detail about what happened and how I figured it out and stuff like that. But I first wanted to just read off what they have written for what is panic and stuff like that, just like I said, to give everybody an idea. So they describe panic. It says, a panic attack is a sudden surge of fear and anxiety that lasts more than 10 minutes. They usually peak within 10 minutes and last for 20 to 30 minutes, rarely over an hour. Often, people who have panic attacks think they are having a heart attack. However, panic attacks are not inherently dangerous. People with panic attacks are frightened of the physical sensations of their body's fight and flight response. Essentially, a set of unexpected physical symptoms appear which causes a person to misinterpret as dangerous, which causes fear and panic, which makes the symptoms even worse. And then it says, some symptoms of a panic attack can include intense fear, fast heart rate or palpitations, shortness of breath or fast breathing, sweating, trembling, chest pain or discomfort, numbness or tingling, feeling dizzy, unsteady, lightheaded, or faint, feelings unreal or being attached from oneself, feelings of choking, fear of losing control, dying or going insane, chills or hot flashes. Panic attacks can happen anywhere and at any time. Some people experience 1 or 2 panic attacks and continue living their regular lives. Others develop panic disorder, which is what I have, where they are plagued by recurrent panic attacks. A key symptom of panic disorder is the persistent fear of having panic attacks. Panic disorder can eventually lead to agoraphobia, which I also have, which is when someone avoids certain environments because of their fear of having a panic attack there. And then it explains panic attacks. It says, during a panic attack, the body fully activates its fight or flight system. Because panic attacks are so traumatic, people can develop panic disorder, where they have recurrent panic attacks. In recurrent panic attacks, the core underlying pattern is a fear of symptoms of anxiety. According to the cognitive behavioral model, panic attacks arise from distorted and catastrophic interpretations of bodily symptoms. Dizziness or heart palpitations may be interpreted as an impending stroke. This interpretation increases arousal and intensifies these body sensations, thus confirming a sense of impending danger until it eventually spirals into a panic attack. The first panic attack is often caused by stressful life events and is often a very traumatic experience. After the first attack, the person can become fearful of having further anxiety attacks and develop the fear of internal physical sensations associated with panic attacks, or the fear of environments associated with panic attacks. The fear of internal sensations associated with panic attacks ultimately leads to further panic attacks when these sensations are detected. This fear, oh God, I lost my spot. This fear can be addressed through interoceptive exposure. The fear of environments associated with panic attacks can lead to an avoidance of those situations. This fear can be addressed through in vivo exposure. So that just kind of gives like an idea of what I go through and other people that have panic disorder. I wanted to talk about kind of just how it started for me. So a while ago, I had my daughter. She's about a year old now. And it started out with, I was diagnosed with postpartum depression. I was very severely suicidal and just down in the dumps all the time. And luckily, I've overcome that for the most part, but life started to go downhill when I was a stay-at-home mom. Bills were piling up. My husband was working, 60, 80 hours a week, and it still wasn't enough to pay the bills, so we were drowning in debt. Lots of stuff. Our marriage was kind of dwindling, and, just normal life stuff. So back in, I believe it was July, I made the decision to go back to school because I wanted to do something that would, produce more money for our family. And the program, I was studying to be a surgical technologist, and it was only going to be about 18 months of schooling. So I started that. And I remember being in class, and a lot of times I'd find myself starting to twitch just randomly. I don't know why, I just did. And I would get hot flashes and heart palpitations, and I'd find myself having a really hard time focusing. Well, I think it was the day after I started school, my husband came home from work with some really bad news that kind of just put me at the top of my stress level. And so the next day at school, I remember just sitting in class, and literally all of a sudden everything around me went white. My body started shaking. I was hot. I was sweating. I remember raising my hand specifically because I had to leave. I couldn't breathe. And all in my head was the thought, oh my gosh, Chelsea, you're gonna have a seizure. Which prior to this, I have had, migraines my whole life. I always get pain in random spots in my head. And I've always had this fear oh, you're gonna either have a seizure or you have a brain tumor, which those two can go together at some point. So when I was feeling these things during class, it just kept running through my head oh my gosh, this is it. You knew you were right. So you're going to have a seizure in the middle of class. So you need to get the hell out of there. And I remember raising my hand in class while my teacher was doing her lecture. And I was just oh my gosh, I gotta go. My hand was trembling so bad. And I remember her just saying, hold on one second, Chelsea, let me finish this. And I had about enough. Sorry guys, I'm sitting on my knees, so it's really hard it's killing me. But yeah, I just remember her telling me to hold on, and when she called on me, I had no care in the world. I said right in front of the class, I'm going to be sick, I need to get up and go. So she told me I could. And I walked out of the classroom, went outside, took a breather, got some fresh air, and luckily the panic attack went away. But when I went back into the classroom, it started happening again. So I pulled her outside and I said, hey, can I go home? I'm not feeling very well. And luckily she was really sweet and let me go home. But when my husband came to pick me up from school, the same thing happened. When I got into the car, I had another panic attack, had to pull over to the side of the road and get out of the car. And so after that, I didn't really have anything happen to me for a while. I just kind of felt well, maybe this is just stress adding up. I need to quit school and go find a full-time job because, our bills are just stressing me out. So I had to make the really tough decision to leave school, which I've been putting off since I graduated, which has been about 4 years. So that was kind of stressful for me to do. And I guess, I really went about maybe a week or two without having a panic attack, or what I thought was, a seizure or something. I thought something bad was really happening to me. And then I remember one day I was just at home with my mom and my kids, and literally the same thing happened to me, but this time it was worse. There was just this feeling that, reality isn't there. None of this makes sense. I'm not really here. My mom's not really here. It was like an out-of-body experience, and it really freaked me out. So this panic attack ended up lasting 5 hours, I believe it was, and I was that close to going to the hospital because I called the doctors, And they thought that I was pregnant possibly, and it was like, you know, a serious thing, like it was not a right pregnancy. But I have an IUD, and there was no way in hell I was pregnant because I've taken pregnancy tests, and, you know, all of them were negative. But, so they told me that, you know, I should go in, but luckily I laid down, and after like 5 hours of it, the panic attack stopped, and I was fine. And then the next day, I got dropped off at my dad's house before my husband was going off to work, and it started happening again, and it was another bad one. And, you know, my husband was very worried for me, and he's just like, you know what, Chelsea, get ready. Your dad will stay with the kids. You're gonna come with me, and we're going to go to the hospital. So we went to the hospital, and I swear, I think we were sitting in the waiting room for about 3 hours, and I was just having a panic attack over and over in the waiting room. And it literally was the worst experience of my life. I felt like I was just dying. I had to be reevaluated because I kept feeling like I was gonna pass out. My heart rate was going all over the place. And they just sat there, you know, they took my oxygen, my heart rate, everything. And they just reassured me, like, you know, everything's fine, it's just a panic attack. And when I got into the back, the doctor wasn't even there. The nurse came in, she's like, have they even given you anything for your panic attack to help relieve some of the anxiety? I'm like, no, not at all. So she gave me some Xanax, and that completely took away all the anxiety. And that's when my doctor came in, and he was all like, you know, you have panic disorder. You need to check in with your doctor. And so, you know, I could get the proper medication and treatment that I needed. And we left the hospital. I was perfectly fine. So then I went to my doctor's the next day, and, you know, same thing was, you know, God, I can't even think of the words. She basically told me I did have a panic disorder and very severe anxiety. And so she prescribed me a small dosage of Xanax and started me on like Buspar or something like that. And now it's just kind of gotten to the point where I have yet to find any medicine that works. I've got probably about 6 to 8 bottles of medicine that I've been using because of this disorder. And it's really debilitating. Like, I haven't left my house maybe 6 or 7 times in the last 2 months because I'm so terrified to get into a car. I cannot get into a car at all. It freaks me out. The feeling of derealization, depersonalization, it just hits me when I get into that seat. And I just feel like I'm gonna faint or, you know, crash the car or something. And so I haven't left the house except to like go to the doctor's, or, you know, I went Christmas shopping for my kids, but that was about it. But it's just kind of like, it's hard to do anything. When I get a panic disorder, or, God, I can't even think. When I get a panic attack, like just some of the symptoms I feel, like I'll get, like all day today, I had pain going up and down my arm, and it was like numbing pain and hot flashes and just sweating and everything. And it really felt like I was having a heart attack, but, you know, I go through, the worst one is the depersonalization, derealization. That just freaks me the heck out because I constantly feel like none of this is real. And I have yet to find a way to get rid of that. So it makes it really hard to live my life. Let's see what else. I get pressure in my head, vision troubles. My body will literally feel like it's shaking, like a really bad earthquake. But when you look at me, like from another person's perspective, when I'm like holding up my hand, like, am I shaking as bad as it looks? And they're like, no, you're not shaking, so it must just be all in your head. And I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. So yeah, there's that. I get the heart palpitations. I constantly like am thinking over and over and over. It's nonstop. Oh, I don't know if you can hear my daughter. She's crying. I think she's okay. It's their bedtime. Anyways, okay, give me 1 second. I'm gonna go check on her. All right, so I checked on her, and unfortunately, there's nothing I can do. So if you hear her in the background, she's just crying because she doesn't want to go to bed, and, yeah. But as I was saying, just some of the things like I experience with it, it's just like I get dizzy, very dizzy. It'll feel like everything around me is spinning, and I'm like, the best way to describe it is when you fall backwards and it feels like you're just like, imagine falling backwards into a dark hole and it's just nonstop, you're just falling. Like, that's how I feel every day. Plus with the like body trembling and everything, it really sucks. I get nauseous, don't want to eat. I've managed to lose 10 pounds in like a month, which I know probably doesn't seem like much, but for me that is a lot considering how much I gained with my pregnancies. But yeah, it's just, there's a lot of symptoms, and I really just, I wouldn't wish this on anybody at all. But I was going to talk about, like, you know, some coping things that I found have worked for me. And I know we're not all the same and different things will work for different people, but this is just, you know, some stuff that I find helpful. So like when I'm going through a panic attack, I find like talking out loud to myself and saying like, this is just a panic attack, Chelsea. You have made it through this before. It's all in your head. You're not actually dying. Just like repeating affirmative words to yourself that, you know, this is okay. It will go away. This will pass. Helps me calm down. Another thing that helps is I color. I love to color. I buy those adult coloring books. Man, my daughter is really going at it. I buy those adult coloring books, and when I feel shaky or anxious, I just sit there and I focus on that. Another thing I find helpful is cleaning, and surprisingly you'd think that wouldn't be very relaxing, but to me it's therapeutic when I can just, you know, have control over everything in the house and make it clean and not so chaotic like it always is because of my kids and my husband. It just gives me a sense of control and keeps my mind off of like the reoccurring intrusive thoughts that I get. You know, listen, I guess, I mean, sometimes I listen to relaxing music, but it doesn't really help because if I sit there in the quiet for too long, I start thinking over and over again. But mind you, I've only had or been diagnosed with it for about 2 months now. I have yet to go to counseling just because I just got my insurance back. So I don't really have any other coping things right now. It's really about it. Besides, like I said, though, I do have this one app which, like, oh, my daughter. Like I said, it has certain things where, like, it'll have, like, a breathing thing that'll help you breathe slowly, and then, like, certain things you can do for external exposure and internal exposure, because apparently it's really good to, like, expose yourself to your fears from the anxiety and to, like, just face it head on, which, like I said, my biggest fear is driving in the car. And the other day I managed to, you know, make it to all these errands I had to run driving by myself without any medicine, and I was very proud of myself. I felt like I was getting better, and then today kind of just hit, and it's just, you know, I didn't feel that great. But yeah, I don't really know much else to say. I feel like, you know, if you know anybody with anxiety or panic disorder, just really be there for them. One of the best things I feel like that anybody could ever do for someone with panic disorder is just be there, because honestly, most of us are terrified to be alone or just feel like we're going crazy, and knowing that I have somebody there that's willing to listen or just hold me helps. Like my mom, she'll be there for me if I need her. So yeah, if anybody out there is going through this or depression or anything, I am always here to talk to. I will link down like my Facebook, my Instagram, that stuff, where you can message me and, you know, talk to me if you really need someone to talk to, because I know what it's like to be anxious. I know what it's like to have depression. I just know. I've been dealing with it since I was 13, so it's been about 7 years of that. But yeah, if you were, you know, interested in this and you enjoyed it, feel free to subscribe. I'm probably going to do a couple check-ins later on, just like with how I'm coping with things, new skills, you know, that sort of stuff, what's worked for me, what hasn't. So that'll be coming up. I don't know when. I'll probably do maybe in a month or so. Every couple weeks I'll do a check-in. Other than that, if anybody wants to hear my story on my postpartum depression, which is like a whole other chapter of my life, like that is just one big whole thing, feel free to let me know, because I'd like to share my story and maybe hopefully help somebody out, because I know it makes a person feel better when they know they're not alone out there. So yeah. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was a lot different. I'll probably put up another vlog tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. I just kind of wanted to get this out there and, you know, hopefully it'll help somebody that needs it. I love you guys. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.